Good evening. I'm Howard Grant, and welcome to the Rundown right here. We're starting another week. It's so great to have you with us, joining us. Well, we're here. We're officially beginning the third week in June, which really means that it's the third week of the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. And while there's no threat to our country now, it doesn't mean that Disaster Risk and Authority isn't working hard to prepare whatever Mother Nature or whenever Mother Nature strikes. All right, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, NOAA, is forecasting about 8 to 14 named storms, winds at about 39 miles an hour or higher. Of those, 3 to 6 are forecasted to become hurricanes. And that's winds of 74 miles an hour or higher, including 1 to 3 major hurricanes category 3, 4, or 5, with winds of 111 miles an hour or higher. With that said, joining us tonight is the Managing Director of the Disaster Risk Management Authority, Aarone Sargent, who will give us an overview of the organization's agenda for this year's hurricane season. Mr. Sargent, welcome to the Rundown, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
Talk to me about these things now. Let me know exactly where we are and give persons sort of an overview, synopsis of the organization.
So based on and I think you started off with talking about some of the climate outlook for the 2026 season, all signs point to a below average season, but it does not mean that the risk is still not present. As you can see just today, the Department of Meteorology released a heat advisory. We noticed it's extremely hot. With this, the presence of El Nino, is anticipated that we will have greater hot spell days. So while the presence of hurricanes may have diminished, the conditions are still favorable for just one. And so we encourage residents to not let that guard down. It does not mean a below average season doesn't mean that we won't have a hurricane. You know, while we pray and we, ensure that we do the things that makes us prepared for any natural hazard threat that comes our way, we have to ensure that we protect what matters to us.
Talk to people about this sort of a concept and idea about El Nino. I know we would have seen it, what, a decade or maybe 2 ago?
Yeah, I think it was
some time ago.
Last season is about 1997.
1997. I remember it.
Yeah.
I was in school, we was talking about El Nino, we thought we were going to die. It was leading up to the kind of a Y2K thing. Tell people about what El Nino is all about.
So, I mean, based on what the guidance from the Department of Meteorology, we just had a major Caribbean Regional Caracoff Summit, which is all of the scientists, the meteorologists, the hydrologists, talking about what does El Nino mean for us. It's a weather phenomenon that exists, and I think based on all accounts, the probability of it occurring is about 65 or 66%. And what it will bring, I think that's where our focus is what it will bring, which is heat, excessive heat. So during the periods of August and September, or even July, we may have greater hot spell days. And so we're looking at 30+ hot spell days when the norm is about 20. And so you can see those are conditions for sea surface temperatures for hurricanes to rapidly intensify, which is why, even though the prediction is a below normal season, we have the environment that is conducive to rapid intensification. That's why we don't want behemoths to let their guards down. It would also mean a much wetter winter. So there's an anticipation for the Northern Caribbean to have greater rainfall in the latter months after the hurricane season, similar to like what we experienced with Tropical Storm Imelda, which brought torrential downfall in our islands. And so these are the things to be cognizant of. And then also, one more point, the winter is expected to be a little bit more colder based on the accounts from the meteorologists and hydrologists. So again, we have to now, look towards continuous preparation, continuous ensuring that we are resilient and we are able to manage any of these threats that come our way.
Tell me about while you're talking about the resilience and the manageability and so forth and so on, tell me about the DRMA's concepts, ideas, their current position in terms of how they're going to be able to deal with this, coupling this with this kind of a position that's associated with El Nino, knowing that it's going to be hotter, that it's going to be cooler. How do we now combat those things, or how do we get the populace prepared for this?
Well, first and foremost, I think the goal of the authority is to continue growing. Our operations don't stop just because I think a lot of the focus is around hurricane season, but our work is continuous. So immediately after the hurricane season, we go into preparedness mode, and preparedness mode for us looks like ensuring that Family Island administrators have the capacity to be able to manage at their levels. We want them to have the ability to manage at their levels, and their risks are uniquely different. So you might see something different in the southern islands as well as different in the northern and central islands. And so we are trying to build capacity. We recently just had 8 regional disaster readiness exercises. Those focus on building the capacity, exposing gaps and areas that we allow the administrators and their teams to kind of provide their own solutions, tailor-made solutions for. So continuous growth from our end. We're continuing to build on our communications platform. What we realize in disaster management, communication is key. So that, you know, being able to manage communication throughout our archipelago is a daunting task. And so maintaining that communication so we have the proper data to make the decisions is where we are focused on.
Tell me about that. As you talk about communications and talking about the Family Islands in retrospect, what are the things that you would have actually learned from last hurricane season or hurricanes before that that you can actually apply to and say, okay, hey, listen, this is the sort of the path that we got to take now?
So data is, it's so critical for us to have the data on each family island. We're continuously building on the data that we have. So I think Hurricane Melissa was really a good test case for us in terms of mass evacuation of residents if the need arises. One of the things that we discovered is we have a lot of challenges, and well, not challenges, but unique landscape. Most of the runways in the southern Bahamas are short. They don't have the requisite firefighting equipment for larger aircraft to land. And so it made our exercise that much more challenging, but we were able to manage and figure it out. And so now going forward, what you'll see is some greater, faster, more efficient ways for us to get our partners involved. We're looking at signing MOUs and agreements, pre-positioned agreements with aviation partners that would allow us to move quickly to get residents to safety.
What are some of the primary concerns that you have in the DRMA?
I think for the most part we could always do with more financial support. I think that is critical, but I can tell you the government is moving quickly to kind of address those matters. We are working around the clock to finalize the disaster emergency and disaster prevention funds regulations and operational guidelines. Those, based on this budget cycle, are now seeded. The emergency fund, based on our comprehensive financial strategy, has about $17 million in it, and the disaster prevention fund will be seeded by approximately $6 million. This would help us in our ongoing programmatic and thematic work throughout the disaster risk management space. So it means that local government practitioners, the DRM authority, our team members, we will be able to now utilize those funds to action those programs.
Tell me how the team looks again. Local government, police officers, all the uniform. Tell me what the...
So from when you talk about a disaster perspective, it's at the national level, it's the Interministerial Committee on Disaster Management led by the Prime Minister. That becomes, during disaster times, the Emergency Council, the National Emergency Council. The authority plays the role of secretariat. From the authority, which is at the national level, we then have the local level, which is led by the administrator. The administrator is supported by what you call a Disaster Risk Management Consultative Committee. That committee comprises of all those individuals that you just named. So the law enforcement agencies, local government practitioners, volunteers. A lot of volunteer firefighting services are big on Family Islands, and so you would see a heavy inclusion of volunteer firefighting volunteers in the Disaster Risk Management Consultative Committee process.
Well, this is an exciting stuff. I really want to be able to find out more about this. I want to find out more about this emergency fund. You know, it's get people business quickly.
Yes.
$17 million, what was the expectation? The last time we would have been able to see Hurricane Joaquin, and the Prime Minister been able to just see in the aftermath. If you remember, during this particular time, the Prime Minister just flew over and said, okay, this is about $60 million. Comes out, it was about $100 million. Yes. What is the $17 million emergency fund expected to do? Is that just for transportation, the persons to get back and forth? Talk to me about it.
So what the fund is basically based on global benchmarks. And so what it's pegged to is a comprehensive financial strategy based on a 1 in 200 year storm. And that is the minimum amount of threshold that we're supposed to have that helps us to start the immediate response to
so so the 1 in 200 year storm would be a Dorian?
Yes.
Okay.
And so along with that $17 million, you also have credit contingencies that come from the IDB, the government of the Bahamas, that bolster our entire response effort. And so, you know, that number is supposed to grow as well. It's not a stagnant number. It's supposed to grow. There's an investment component in it, which we are finalizing those regulations, and that is to support the work of our immediate work in response. So that's between the 1 month to 3 month phase after a threat is passed.
Well, this is exciting stuff. So with the $78 million, I just wanted to be able to get just a little touch in this particular thing. $78 million, a person's being able to find out they got to be able to transport, they got to find some place to stay in the aftermath of the storm,
and
be able to do these things, right? So this encompasses within that particular fund?
Yes. So any what we call ex-post action, meaning after the storm has passed, that is funding that is available to the authority for rapid use. One of the things that occurred before, one of the lessons learned from Dorian, is ready and available funding. So that $17 million is available today if an event is bearing down at our footsteps.
From the authority?
Yes.
You know, what's crazy said, as you talk about these particular things, the first thing I thought about was Dorian and how we had been able to go to Samaritan's Purse and look for friends and family and, you know, well-wishers all around the world to be able to support us in being able to survive days after the storm. Can this alleviate that? So
it's not meant to alleviate. It's meant to work in tandem. So we still have those partnerships still alive. A part of our new legislation calls for, well, the establishment of a non-governmental consultative committee, which we have already established, that helps us to manage the relationships with NGOs, partners who want to come and support the work that the government and augment some of the challenges. I think the last, most interesting case when you would see non-governmental partners and bilateral partners come in and support is in Hurricane Melissa, during times where we had global support and development come in to provide us with support, to provide water, small items for the family islands that are in need. And so, you know, it's meant to work in tandem during times of crisis. That is the global benchmark for us to start off and then continue our response and recovery efforts.
Talk to me about training. I know that we got to take a break real soon, but talk to me about training. There's sort of a concept and idea, especially what we would have seen coming out of Dorian, the lack of preparedness that exists in those particular spaces, even this sort of idea of the assessment that exists in those particular areas. Talk to me about what are you doing now? We saw the scurry, we saw the development of the authority, we saw the necessity for these particular things. What are you doing now as an established organization to be able to get you to that position?
So capacity building is key. As you heard us talk about earlier, the expansion of our national exercise. So we had one national readiness exercise 3 years ago that is now expanded. We have, in addition to the national exercise, we have done 8 regional exercises where we go to the administrator and we help them to build capacity, which is supported by U.S. Northern Command. So that helps the administrator to learn key skills on shelter management, training, etc. How the ability to respond, the ability what to communicate, how to provide us with that initial assessment that allows the authority and the leadership of the country to make proper decisions when it comes to disaster preparedness. We have also just recently finalized a shelter management training with the Department of Social Services that, again, sponsored by some of our good key non-governmental partners. Today we came from a training on developing an intuitive new information database system. That's where... And
you say intuitive?
Yeah, intuitive meaning...
You're saying AI?
Yes, using intelligence to help us in driving how we utilize data, how we collect the data, and how we make decisions from it.
This is exciting. I got to tell you that one of the things that pops up, and you know, I don't necessarily do this on the fly, but I've been doing this long enough that there's some concerns that exist. One of the concerns that exists, especially out of Abaco, and more specifically out of Grand Bahama, from Grand Bahama, you would have been able to see places designated as shelters that weren't worthy of being identified as shelters. You see what I'm saying? And only for the grace of God that you didn't see like mass casualties. But these places, they got runs in the bell course. They got, you know what I mean? Like, talk to me about that. How do you make that assessment, post-Dorian especially?
So that's one of the things, that's one of the critical things that I think we have resolved at this point. When we came in, one of the things I questioned is the integrity of the shelter listing. I'm not saying that it would, we had a perfect system, but what we did was expand the inspection and assessment process to provide us with the data that we are now able and comfortable to sign off to say this is what this shelter is capable of doing. It is capable of housing X amount of people. It can withstand up to this amount of winds. With the changing building code, shelters now need to be built to withstand 200 miles per hour. So a number of the shelters are built to withstand Cat 3, Cat 4 storms. So we now have that tiered rating.
And this is from 1992.
No, building code is adjusted over the last, I believe, 2 years, 2 to 3 years in terms of shelters, yes. So, you know, even down to my operations center, that has to be what they call it, the Ministry of Works a risk 4 profile, which is 200 plus mile per hour winds.
Really?
And so we've incorporated that.
And that's just over the last decade, being able to identify.
Yeah, and that's, again, lessons learned from Hurricane Dorian.
Wow.
And so increasing that, and then also understanding how many people, how many Bahamians can we shelter during times of disaster. That number is now at roughly 3% of population, roughly 14,000 people. The goal and target for us is about 10% of population. And so it means we are pressing
40,000 people.
Yes, and agitating for the increased building of new shelters, and particularly the southern islands. We know that's where the capacity.
There has been this sort of a conversation post-Dorian about the concept and idea of being able to strategically put shelters in place in the city of Nassau and other places.
Yeah.
How's that going?
So we are working with, again, our external partners, the Ministry of Finance, to develop a program to build out additional shelters to help us build capacity. So we are pushing. And of course, these have to be multi-use facilities that can serve the communities that they are built in, but at the same time provide a safe haven for residents during those times of threat. It'll also help us to reduce the times when we have to do evacuations. The reason why we have to do evacuations is because at some point, the assets on the ground in terms of shelters are not up to the standard that we would wish them to be. And so we'd rather ensure that people's safety is paramount.
Dorian taught us a lot.
Yes.
Dorian taught us a lot. And especially those persons who would have stayed behind in Abaco and say, no, we could ride out the storm. My God.
Yeah, we're no longer seeing people do that, though.
Ride what?
Yeah.
No way.
We are seeing people from the evacuation orders that we have given over the last 2-3 years. We've seen people take it seriously. Even before we issue it, we get...
and that's crazy. It didn't have to happen to them. Let's say, hypothetically, this is in Anagua or someplace further south. It didn't have to happen to you directly, but get on the plane.
Yes.
Don't even pretend with this.
Yes.
Get on the plane.
Get on the plane.
Because we've seen Abaco, and we were devastated as a country.
Yes, and these storms today are much stronger, much more powerful. Every year we're seeing records.
That's what I wanted to know. I mean, with this sort of a concept and idea, and we're going to take a break. We're going to take a quick break, right? But this concept and idea of El Nino and the application thereof, and even though we have these kind of 3 to 6 major storms being able to be identified, what is the probability of them being able to be intensified to a position like Dorian?
Right.
When we get back, we can just talk about these things. Guys, we're going to take this quick commercial break. We're going to be right back after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's make it a date. Saturday, June 27, 2026, 7 p.m. at Atlantis Paradise Island. It's the Kingdom National Parkinson Foundation's 26th Annual Gala Charity Ball. Cocktails begin at 6:45 p.m. Food prepared by international chefs. Tons of prizes and surprises. Entertainment by the Royal Bahamas Defense Force Pop Band, DJ Gary Super Johnson, and the Dynamic Essence Band. Once again, it's Saturday, June 27, 2026, 7 p.m. at Atlantis Paradise Island. If you haven't already purchased your ticket, give us a call at 242-477-3782. That's 242-477-3782. With your help, we can continue to tell those with Parkinson. We are not strong, and I'll be your friend.
And it with our adoption by the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
We figured that we could use the First Bahamas branch of Toastmasters Club 1600, an all-male club that specializes and focuses on developing young men for leadership through communication.
This program has grown and has impacted our school in such a positive way that I don't think we'll ever have them leave us.
Too often, instead of us looking within, we look outside for someone to blame. Go take a look in the mirror. Instead of trying to identify what the problems are, let's try and figure out how we become a part of the solution.
We are teaching these children how to dream beyond their communities.
Crime-free looks like me.
Do your part. Join the movement to a safer Bahamas.
Let's swim Bahamas, bring water hazards to an end.
Let's swim Bahamas. Water safety rule number 3. Do not duck or hold other swimmers underwater use rough horseplay, or show off in or around the water.
Let's swim Bahamas, bring water hazards to an end. Water hazards to an end.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being able to join us. I'm Howard Grant. This is The Rundown. I'm sitting here with Mr. Sargent, all the way from let's see where you are, from Managing Director of the Disaster Risk Management Authority, Aarone Sargent, here with us, being able to have a very good conversation, being able to talk to us about these sort of concepts and ideas, and really getting to the position of talking to us what's happening. I'm very grateful that we kind of joined this conversation and we're diving into this. So talk to me about this. When we left off, we were in this kind of a position of being able to find out exactly what I want to know. What is the #1 request by the Bahamian people throughout the communities, throughout the constituencies, after a storm? What are persons being able to come up and say, hey, listen, we need some help with this?
Yeah, so I think most cases we see requests for tarp because of roof damage. We see requests for food. And then on the recovery end for assistance to rebuild homes. And this is exactly one of the reasons why we're developing a recovery framework.
At the inception, sorry, because the thing popped in my head like this. Okay? At the inception of the DRA, the Disaster Risk Authority, the Disaster Risk Management, and the Ministry, and then eventually bubbling into the authority. At the inception, they were giving something like $5,000, $9,000, and after this massive assessment, did you make modifications to that?
Yes.
Praise Jesus. Yes. Okay, let me finish telling me.
And so, again, when you speak of the assessments and you speak of what was given the grants, one of the lessons learned, again, is having a framework in place that governs how the government provides support and assistance. One part of that is already completed. We have developed a national humanitarian standards and assistance, which governs how we provide care to residents in the Bahamas during and after the times of a disaster. The second stage of that for us is developing that recovery framework. So what does that assistance look like? What is practical? Because a part of the challenge is a number of residents, what we've seen in the past, would request support, and the funding is not there and ready and available to be able to sustain a mass recovery and build out. And it's not something that's sustained worldwide. You know, even when you talk about FEMA and you look at what they do during home recovery, they don't rebuild the entire home. They would probably provide you with a grant, an initial grant and assistance, and then you're provided with lanes to allow you to rebuild your home. Which is why we often encourage residents to, if you're able to, look at your homeowner's insurance, get it. I know it's sometimes costly, but it's a worthy investment because your home is something, a once-in-a-lifetime investment. And so, you know, we encourage residents to take care, to take some special care and attention into their homeowner's insurance, ensuring that they have the catastrophic clause in there, because that's another point. What we saw a lot of residents did not have in their homeowner's insurance clause that didn't allow them to get the support that's needed.
Well, I'm glad to be able to hear about those particular things. So you said that the #1 thing that persons ask for is tarp.
Yes.
Now, after the hurricane, years after, you can still fly over certain constituencies, over certain communities, and still see blue tarp.
Yeah.
Years after. Now, this has nothing to do with we're not talking politics. Yeah. We're talking remedy. How do we fix this? Yeah. How do we... Is the $17 million to assist with this? No, right off the top. Let's just be very clear, Howard.
Disaster is just what it says. It's for emergency support to a response effort for that particular event. So those past events, you know, one of the things I believe that has occurred is there's been some shift in some of those long-term recovery support systems, and so residents can look to go to the urban renewal from time to time to get some support. But again, these things are a work in progress, and what we encourage residents to do, rather than waiting on the assistance, is find creative ways to rebuild. You know, I know a number of residents took the time and took the effort to rebuild themselves rather than waiting on, you know, government support. And so while we work to build out a recovery framework and how long-term recovery looks like and how that is funded, because I think that's what's important, developing the frameworks that govern how governments provide assistance, whether that's in-kind assistance or a grant to rebuild your home or partially rebuild, because the government cannot rebuild everyone's home. That's just financially, it's not sound. We're looking at models. I believe Jamaica is a really good model in terms of how it rebuilt and how it offered assistance to residents. But again, it's not able to fund everyone's and to rebuild everyone's home. And so what we encourage people to do is prepare now, prepare today while we have opportunities. You know, if you need to rebuild, seek out the necessary support that's needed, and repair some of those things that we know exist in our homes before a storm threatens our shores.
Let's talk about this. One of the things that actually popped up as you were speaking is the necessity for being able to tap into creativity. A lot of persons are out there. They need to be able to figure out ways that they can take care of themselves, take care of their families, whether that's security, pre, post, during, after any disaster, natural disaster. Talk to me about the creative avenues that you've taken within the DRMA, right? Talk to me about the avenues that you've taken and what you would have learned and so forth and so on. Now, you would have been able to give me nice nuggets here and there, but there has to be sort of an overarching thing that says, hey, listen, this is the creativity that exists in this particular spaces. Let's tap into this. Talk to me about it.
So one of the things that you would find that the team created was a free resource where residents could, you know, I could ask you now, do you have a family evacuation plan? Do you have a disaster emergency plan? And what we find...
Everybody out the front door, let's go.
But do you have a secondary? Have you identified the shelter that you're going to go?
No.
Where's your nearest shelter? What's the route looking like? What to build to bring to a shelter?
That's crazy. I don't know whether or not we here, when I can speak for me, I don't know whether or not we here in the city of Nassau have taken this. I think we've sat in this kind of a position that we're nestled in the midst of our islands.
It takes just 1 hour. One major catastrophic storm. We've done flood modeling.
Pinewood can't take this, don't even talk.
I mean, it's not just Pinewood. And the seriousness of the matter is we've done modeling where a Cat 4 or Cat 5 Dorian-like storm hits New Providence. The entire southern corridor from east to west, underwater, where I live, will be underwater. So are we taking the necessary steps to understand where we are to go? What's next? So, you know, do you have a go-bag pack? Do you have, you know, life vests? We've seen in Dorian the harrowing pictures of people, you know, in waters up to their ceilings. Again, taking the time to just simply do simple, small measures that will help to protect your family.
Even in Katrina, when we watched Katrina, and in Zone 4, what was it, Zone 9, Zone 4, something like that, in Katrina, in the third war, and we would have seen people and the levees break and all these particular things happen. Persons drowned in their attics.
Yes. Yeah. Not having in your attic a pickaxe to cut through.
To cut through your roof.
Yeah.
People drowned in their attics.
And so literally you can find these on getready.gov.bs. This is a free resource that we provide to help residents prepare, you know, looking and inspecting your yards, what to bring to a shelter. You know, that's another thing that we find critical when residents go to the shelter. You know, a simple thing, if you have kids, do you bring entertainment? Do you bring games? Do you bring their blankets? Do you bring those items?
I think this is a conversation that needs to be stretched far and wide, very seriously, because during the times of the hurricane, we would have heard disastrous stories being able to spill out of shelters that are churches.
Yeah.
And the debauchery that happened in these particular spaces is just something that you need to be able to get persons prepared.
Yes, and which is why we, you know, again, I said recently, just last week, completed shelter management training. It's an ongoing. We're now expanding it to the public. And so bit by bit, we're doing our part to kind of bring the capacity of how to manage your shelters, how to volunteer, how to provide us with support.
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about how to volunteer. How do I become a volunteer? All those persons who, at the last moment, God, tell me I got to help.
So one of the things that we're doing, though, is developing a system that allows us to vet. One of the things we don't want is to create another challenge, another disaster within itself. And so vetting individuals, ensuring that they have the proper training. So bit by bit, we're developing the training programs. So you'd see us roll out shelter management training, whether that's emergency operations center training, so being able to work in the National Disaster Emergency Operations Center with the likes of myself, along with our management team. Vetting individuals that they're
still on Gladstone Road?
Still on Gladstone Road for the time being. We're looking at some options, again, thinking futuristically, because God forbid if there's a storm, where we are will be displaced.
Media during the time of Dorian was crazy.
Yes.
and all of us continue to be able to flock down there to find out exactly what's what, and persons coming over from all over, and so forth and so on. I know that you got a hand at that. You got a hold of that, and you were able to identify, and something happened, we know how to do these things.
And where to go if God forbid, that our main EOC is determined inoperable. Having secondary and third level options for us to be able to pivot. I think one of the key things in disaster management is the ability to have redundancies and then also to pivot. And so I think that's one of the challenges that we continuously on a day-by-day are trying to resolve within the authority. With the limited capacity, limited financing that we have, we're doing what we can to ensure that the country is safe during times of natural hazard threat.
Given the fact that we're in budget time right now, I know that those that are, who's your minister now?
The Honorable Michael Bonnaby, I believe he's on.
Michael Bonnaby.
I think he should be speaking.
And he's also the head of ZNES. Yes, Michael Bonnaby, So I know that they are setting things aside for us to be able to have our budgets and make sure everything is set in place. And the $17 million plus the $6 million is taken care of for you. But I need to know, what is the course of being able to tap into more finances? Because this is essential, right? I know the persons are kind of, they get, indifferent when it's time to talk about monies. But this is the number one thing. You can't get no toilet paper without money. This is the number one thing that we need in the event that there is a disaster. Not this expectation to be able to wait to see if America shows up, or this expectation to see whether or not, and these are our partners, and this is no knock to them, whether it's Samaritan Purse America, whether it's World Food Program. They have done a tremendous, they did well with us, right? But if you remember during the hurricane time, right after that, we would have been able to see Notre Dame burn, if you remember that. And so the focus shifted, and we were left in this kind of a space. How do we do that? So let's talk about this. How do we now build the finances necessary to be able to sustain, to maintain, and to at least help persons to get to a position of dignity and say, hey, listen, okay, now we can do this.
So again, I spoke to the comprehensive financial strategy. That highlights what credit facilities that we have to offer. I believe based on once we have a national declaration of disaster, there are credit facilities that are available to us and through the Ministry of Finance that are in excess of $300 to $400 million. So again, the $17 million was immediate response. So when I say disaster emergency, I mean immediate response. And if we need to immediately evacuate individuals or establish a temporary shelter facility to be able to hold thousands of people, that funding will go, but that's only to start. The government of the Bahamas, through its various agreements, again with the IDB, we have a $100 million credit facility with them that immediately becomes activated once we have a declaration of disaster, which our legislation now has. And so that happens when we have a Cat 4, Cat 5 storm that is impending on, and it's projected to hit multiple islands.
Just heavy what you're saying, but a declaration of disaster or impending disaster, after there's a declaration, it doesn't necessarily have to be a hurricane.
Yes, it doesn't, no.
It could be a natural disaster.
A natural disaster.
It could be, well, let me don't say that, because Baptist people watching, they can tell me, how would you know? But there could be any number of natural disasters. We said in a fault, that's as close as I can come. There are things that can happen. And so if this declaration happens, we still have access to this $100 million. Okay, good.
Multiple credit facilities that make up what we call our comprehensive financial strategy.
That's excellent, man. I like this, man. Talk to me about this sort of an idea that's happening going forward now. Listen, we're in this kind of a position. We're seeing what the DRM has done. We've seen over the course, since the inception, with the first minister being able to be over this and how it's grew and matured and developed. And we've seen you take on this kind of the formality of what it should be. You've done very well. We're looking at these particular things. Talk to me about the next dispensation. Where do you go from here? How does it look going forward? You've talked about artificial intelligence, you talked about the incorporation of these particular concepts, you talked about tapping into creativity. These are all progressive thoughts, ideas, concepts, wording, language of a futuristic outlook. So there must be somewhere that you've looked and said, okay, this is our expectation, whether that's wrapped in the NDP, National Development Program, whatever that is, you have to look at this and say, in 15 years, we expect to be in a more solid position. Talk to me about that.
So, Howard, I would start off by saying, when you speak about the NDP and the work of the National Development Plan, we have commenced our own work that is to be included in the National Development Plan. We have developed in conjunction with what is called SEDIMA. SEDIMA is the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. We have developed a country work program that takes us until 2030, which is when the international Sendai framework ends, and it is anticipated that it will be renewed in some form or fashion. That guides the work of the country on disaster risk management activities. Not just the authority, we are part of it as one of the major stakeholders, but it guides the work. And so that whether that's developing all of the policy instruments that we talked about earlier, developing the next steps for capacity building. One of the key things that's on our agenda is the development of a national disaster risk information database that helps us to utilize intelligent tools to be able to help run or predict forecasts, have data sets that allow the authority to make intuitive decisions when it comes to being able to respond to.
National Disaster Risk Database?
Yeah, NDRIS it's called, National Disaster Risk Information System Database.
What's the expectation to be happening? Who can access this? This is accessible to you?
This is accessible to us.
Internally?
External partners who help us manage disasters. And so whether it's law enforcement, the meteorology department, the National Statistics Institute,
so let's just
Geospatial Center.
Let's just say hypothetically, there is a geomapping, right? So you geomap and you identify the highs, the lows, where it's prone for flooding, so forth and so on. You identify that. You use this information to make a determination to be able to put a concentration and say, hey, listen, this area needs to be able to get out now. This area needs to be able to get out now. And so
not just that. Also develop what the risk is, what the financial exposure is, so that we know ahead of time what is needed. So when you talk about financing and being able to underpin those decisions against the backdrop of data, the world is moving towards inclusion of data to drive decision-making, and so we are likewise moving in a similar vein in terms of...
That's impressive, by the way, just let you say that.
Thank you.
That's very impressive, because a lot of persons we know that we're in a society where there is sort of a tug, a push and pull when it comes to tradition and technological advancement, and tradition and technological advancement. And so this kind of a tug of war places us many times in a stagnant position. But you're moving forward with this sort of an idea of the technological advancements to be able to take us where we need to go.
Yeah, at every
Talk to me about that.
At every phase of disaster management, we are looking at creative ways to include technology. Whether that's how the team, once we are activated, take a situational report that allows my counterparts in other agencies to see that situation report to be able to reach and carry out or conduct a request that comes through. Simple things like that we are trying to expand on, whether that's using Starlink technology. We now have, Starlink is also a major partner of the authority. We have kits.
And Falcon 9.
Kits that are able to be deployed once there's a threat. We've worked with them, so now in terms of enabling the shelteree to have communication to ease someone who is maybe in New Providence, and they may have a family member in Agua that they cannot reach. Being able to have that level of technology to support the work that we're doing, I think ease some of the burden of the...
You talked a lot about the intangibles, the concepts, the ideas, the creativity, the aspects of how you're going to be able to do these things, but you didn't talk to me about the tangibles, whether or not we're getting a helicopter, whether or not you're going to be able to get... Talk to me.
Yeah, I can't speak to the helicopter.
I know you don't want to talk to
But I can speak
You need one.
Hold on. I can speak bit by bit. We got to take bit by bit.
You can't get a bit of a helicopter.
Take incremental steps. So one of the things that we have just most recently last year, we got 18 off-road, what they call utility, all-terrain vehicles for wildfire fighting. They are being dispatched. We additionally added foam inductors to them. So to stretch the capacity, once those assets go into the wildfire zones, we're looking at some more unmanned ground vehicles that help we've heard some of the cries of firefighting services, especially the volunteer firefighters, that the trucks cannot go into the bushes. And so utilizing...
They're trucks?
No.
Hold on now. You're being decent, because we've heard some of the cries here too. And in some jurisdictions, some divisions, they don't have the necessities of being able to do this. We're watching things, you know what I'm saying? So we need to know whether or not you are a partner also in being able to agitate, advocate for those particular jurisdictions to be able to have what they need.
And so, again, one of the things we're doing is trying to do our part to utilize and leverage some of the relationships that we have to build that resilience, the ability to have unmanned vehicles go into the wildfire zones.
Unmanned vehicles is wild. Unmanned vehicles?
Yeah, they exist.
We know they exist.
They exist, and you know, when you talk about financial costs, you know, those on deck, which is what the authority is looking at supporting. We last year, the team and I would have visited a manufacturer who developed the first gasoline heavy lift drone that takes the place of a helicopter, which you asked for, that does the aerial drops. So we're advancing past some of the, because
so you don't need helicopter.
I would suggest not, because the maintenance.
We could be sitting in Nassau.
We could have a fancy helicopter.
Have a fancy helicopter in the Nagua.
Yeah, but that's maintenance.
You are something else.
So the thought is to move into the unmanned asset that can, you know, now use technology, LiDAR, radar, and detect the heat spot, go straight to the heat spot rather than relying on a pilot. You know, the pilot will be on the ground using technology.
Talk about advancement.
And so, again, that's some of the things that we are looking at, creative ways where we can support. We may not have big financial output, but using our reach to kind of build the support that is needed for all of our stakeholders, whether that's the Royal Bahamas Police Force, who are good partners, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, good partners, providing them with the necessary support, because they're always with us during times of disaster.
Well, let me take this commercial break. When we get back, we're going to find out a little bit more, wrap this thing up, tell you how you can become a volunteer, tell you how you can be able to participate. You ain't got to wait for the last minute, going down there and you're on there talking, but I come to help. Stop it. We ain't got time for that, miss. Let's just be able to get these things done. We can take this quick break and get right back with Mr. Sargent and find us more information.
Oh, you're still here?
But of course you are. But be sure to tune in every weekday at 7:30 p.m. for the Bahamas Tonight Access Now,
Where we bring you the brighter side of news.
Join us for the Bahamas Tonight
Access Now, weeknights at 7:30 p.m.
Mailboat service is a critical service to the islands of the Bahamas. Certainly, Andrews has always been there and dear to us. That's where we're born and raised. And so we play a crucial role in advancing the growth and development of Andrews. Customers want service and they want consistency. From the start, that's been our commitment. We work to sail on time every time. Our customers have come now to expect this from us. And one of the biggest challenges we've had was finding adequate funding. SPDC from the very start has been a lifesaver. My advice to young people, if you have a vision, a passion, an idea, go for it. Don't give up. It's not easy. If it was, everybody would be doing it. Be consistent and you'll get there.
This is a rundown. I'm Howard Grant, having a great opportunity, great time to be able to talk about all things bright and beautiful, all things scary also, being able to talk about these things as it relates to hurricanes and natural disasters, and really being able to see ourselves prepared for them. I'm sitting here with none other than Managing Director of the Disaster Risk Management Authority, Aarone Sargent. Really been able to give us some very good information, talking to us about these sort of concepts and ideas, telling us all about how our tax dollars would buy unmanned drones. No, I'm just messing with you right here. But there's great concepts, man. It's really great concepts, and I want to be able to really commend you and the entire team, the DRM Authority.
Yes, good stuff.
It's a DRM Authority.
Perfect.
I just want to be very clear with you and let you know exactly what's what. But you have, from the inception, the concept and the idea, and this being able to be introduced to the country and being able to identify this as a political tool to be able to give someone else, or give the assumption, the idea of execution in these particular things. This is a small country. And so you see these things and you perceive something and not necessarily know it. Mm-hmm. The evolution of of this particular concept and the incorporation, the talent that exists in this space, you know that this is world class. You know that this ain't Katrina FEMA. This, you see me, I decent, you know. They're saying, what is FEMA? This is top tier.
Thank you.
This is top tier. And I want to be able to commend you for that, commend your entire team, commend all those in authority for being able to understand the importance of being able to put persons in place with the requisite skills to do this. Because people don't really think about that. And I want to talk about this sort of an idea for persons who are out there who are participants. There is a natural urge that actually propels you to move forward to help, especially when you see this sort of a mass disaster, right? Not just from an external standpoint, from an internal standpoint here in the country. Persons look at this and say, how do we help? How can I help, right? You don't have to wait until the last minute to kind of jump on board. If you know that your heart is in this sort of helping as a firefighter, helping as one of the persons in the shelters, helping in these particular areas, you know who this would be good for? My mother. She loved to get in things like this. I know my mommy watching me right now. She loved to do things like this. Tell me about how do we participate as it relates to being able to help before the disaster strikes.
So, Howard, you spoke, and thank you for the thoughts on where we, and the evolution of DRM in the country. Initially, oftentimes when we make presentations about where we're going, we make reference to what our predecessors were, and I heard you talk about and mention the NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency, the then Disaster Reconstruction Authority, and the thought was those agencies, you know, were built for immediate response.
Yeah.
And they resemble Usain Bolt, sprint, quick fix, in and out, etc.
But this is a marathon.
Yeah, hey. You're in the spirit.
Boom.
You're in the spirit.
You
know, and so we often compare it to the world's greatest marathon runner. And not to say that we are done working. There's a lot of work for us to do. We've spent the last 3 years since we are operationalized in 2024, hitting the ground, even while still managing active seasons. So every year, I believe, for the last 3 years, we had, not including this year, we had 5 activations of our Emergency Operations Center, which means, you know, we work 24/7. I myself don't go home. We stay in the Emergency Operations Center.
You don't go home?
No, I don't. I won't leave.
Is this an agreement that we have home?
Yes, my wife. And
she's a decent woman, praise God.
Yes, they support me 100%.
Where you going?
I make sure that they're covered and they're protected, and I keep my eyes open for them. But again, and this is sacrifice to country. I mean, we have to, the work that we do, and I often tell the staff, the work that we do is to protect and save lives. That's the mandate that we have in the legislation. And so where we're going is...
It's hard. I have to cut you off there. During Hurricane Dorian, East Grand Bahama, Abaco, sitting over this particular space, there were calls going out all over the islands, those northern islands. We need help. People braving the storms, carrying backhoes and tractors through water after the government has already told you to evacuate and you didn't evacuate. Now we got to carry my whole backhoe and get salt water in that. You can help me fix these things.
Can't afford it.
Yeah? But I got to save you so I can get one pin in church. Talk to me about this.
So Howard, I could tell you, and I've been saying it for the last 3 years, the legislation empowers the authority not to be held liable and first responders if you do not heed an evacuation order. So we don't take it lightly when you see the Prime Minister declares and issues an evacuation order. When the authority recommends...
Mandatory.
So there's some caveat, and it's not mandatory because there's some constitutional inferences surrounding it.
You can't tell the people do.
Yes. But
strong.
Be strong. And what we're seeing, though, I must say, I'm seeing a turn in Bahamians taking preparedness seriously. So when we had the, I think it's Hurricane Milton that touched Grand Bahama and I believe Sweetings Key, we saw residents before the order was even given. I got the calls, administrators moving and using buses to evacuate people from the docks to get to the shelters. So people are heeding it. The same thing happened in Tropical Storm Imelda in Abaco. people moved immediately. We utilized the national alert system, which again, thank you for the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the commissioner and her team.
That was all over our phone.
Yes. Yes, and we apologize for doing it.
No, why are you going to apologize?
But it works. And so, you know, where we're growing with that is to then target alerts. So, for instance, Tropical Storm Imelda would have shifted over Sandy Point, Abaco at 3 a.m. in the morning while we were in the EOC with the Department of Meteorology. The only way to alert those individuals who may have suffered power outages...
Hit their phone.
Hit their phone.
Bing, bing, bing,
and
bing,
it worked.
bing, bing.
Everybody got up. And so, you know, again, lessons learned from Hurricane Dorian. People are moving. When we issue the evacuation order, we encourage people, listen, the law now prescribes that there's no liability if a first responder doesn't come out for you.
Do we have first rights of refusal also? If I am at the front line, and maybe this is too strong of a question, but if I'm at the front line and there's somebody who needs some assistance and they're crying out for assistance and so forth and so on, and the winds are 115 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, and they need help, I love them, but...
We won't put the lives of our first responders at risk.
I can't do it.
Especially... Again, once you see that evacuation order given, we'll give residents enough time. Again, Hurricane Melissa, we evacuated nearly 1,500 residents before the storm had actually hit.
I think the media does its part, both local and international, by being able to give the weight and possibility of what this could mean. We would have heard with Hurricane Dorian, we would have heard the intense nature of the storm and all these particular things happen both locally, and we would have heard the comparisons to this storm and that storm and how many persons would have passed away, or all these particular things, and you'll understand the intensity that exists in these things. You got to make a decision, man.
Yes.
You got to make a decision.
Yes.
A lot of persons are in this kind of a position, and so I want to be able to hear about that. Talk to me about that. We only get a couple more minutes so we can be able to leave out of here. I just wanted to talk about futuristic concepts of what can happen. You told us a great deal. I want to be able to thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to talk to you like this, and I'm hoping that everyone ingested this stuff and talk to us about these particular things, right? But just before we get out of here, I want to talk to you about this sort of a concept and idea about what we do going forward. What are the things that we can expect from you? What are the things that we can be able to do like that?
So I think first and foremost, I am a big proponent on building capacity. We continuously try to grow our teams. One of the challenges we find is that there are a number of, there's not a lot of disaster practitioners in our space. And so bit by bit, you've seen members of our team expand their knowledge base. We've sent teams all over. I just recently came from a EU tour with the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, myself and my PS. We toured DHL. You know, we toured various other entities. We went to the Barcelona supercomputer to see how we can utilize the tools and these assets through the EU support and donor funding that helps us to make a more robust disaster risk management
And you're forging relationships at the same time?
Yes. So already, since we've come back, we've reached out to DHL. DHL is on board to do a supply and logistics assessment tied with World Food Program. Additionally, one of the things we learned out of Hurricane Melissa and the evacuation exercise, how do we utilize the airports, getting airports ready for disasters. And so we're now going to encourage, DHL is working with us to, what they implement is called a guard assessment, get airports ready for disasters, to see where our weak points are. And so what we're doing is systematically exposing our gaps, being able to close them, and then also fill those gaps with technology and build the capacity of our staff, volunteers, the National Youth Guard. They go through a rigorous disaster risk management training, which is a part of their work.
Mr. Sargent, I want to thank you, man. You did very good. I hope everybody enjoyed this. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great conversation tonight, none other than Aarone Sargent being able to talk to us about all things disaster. That does it here for us here at The Rundown. Be sure that you stay locked in at ZNS Network for the Bahamas tonight at 11 p.m. It's the final newscast in the country with latest news and information from Corvell Pyfrom. From all of us here at ZNS, I'm Howard Grant. Thanks so much for joining.